Hey guys, it's for real, and today we'll be looking at the M5Y. Now, the M5Y is the Tier 10 American heavy tank, which has, the special track mechanic feature, which I won't get into detail, but basically, if an enemy hits your tracks in a specific angle, you're still able to go back or forth in a much more reduced speed, but it does help you out to get out in some certain situations. Now, the M5Y has a choice of two guns, and one offers 448 damage but much reduced DPM, while the other one has 360 alpha, which is rather low for tier 10s, but it has exceptional reload time. I wouldn't say exceptional, but I would say a decent reload time and good aim. And take into consideration that the two gameplays that I'm going to show you are all with small guns and without stabs. However, I'd say that stabs are not relevant on this tank because the gun is so good in terms of accuracy. Obviously not when you shoot at long range. Another reason for using the small gun is that it has better penetration than the big gun. So when you see that the tank has better rate of fire, better penetration, better accuracy, there's almost no point to trying to get the high alpha gun, except if you want to try it out and play for the memes. For example, on the AMX, I played the heavy tank I'm referring to. I played with a big gun when I was free marking it. Well, the thing is, there was a much more substantial difference in the terms of damage, and I found it much more interesting. I guess at the end of the day, if you're playing, it depends on how you're playing, the battle. What do you want to do, Uh, how you have fun the most at the end is the most important, right? And on the AMX, for example, I had the most fun with a big gun. I didn't even try the small gun, even though I knew it was statistically better. That's all I'm going to say about that. So anyways, why don't we focus on the battle itself? So it's 1-3. We've basically lost the city, as you can correctly see. I've managed to track the FV, which is great because that tank is extremely scary, as you all know. I shoot the 705 clutch, that was perfect. If I was playing the battle back, I probably would have intuition real quick and try to hit the tracks, which would allow me to farm in much more. But anyways, I still managed to put 2 shots in, make that free. However, I take one back. What I, as a rule of thumb, think is that my HP is more important than the enemy's HP. It's more worth. Why is that? Because, not to brag or anything, I'm a good player. I'm not the best in the world, of course, but I'm a good player. And the enemies tend not to be on the same level. So I can't trade, 1-for-1, have an equal trade. I always have to at least double the amount of HP, to make the trade worth it. And of course, it's even better if I, don't lose HP at all. So anyways, well, focusing back on what's going on, it's 2-7. We're slowly even losing the field. And this is a battle where, once again, you want to maximize the output of your damage. And as you can see, I already put a few nice shots, into the cupola clutch. Thankfully, that's because of a gun. And with a big gun, there's no chance I'd be hitting most of these shots. Like, for example, on BFE, which I did with that, which was just a flick of a wrist, basically. And I think I'm gonna say is that there's no question that of all the hold down heavy tanks is probably the worst one. And that is because even though it was displayed that it was going to have an excellent, turret armor and everything, it actually gets penetrated left, right, and center. So it's worse than a Conk, it's obviously worse than a Chief, it's worse than a Kron, there's basically no point in playing this vehicle. But I played it because, I just, free marked every other tank, so why not just take a new one, and mark it. But I did enjoy this vehicle. It was definitely not as high performing as the other hold down tanks, as I stated, but it was definitely a fun tank to play. And people hate on the look of this vehicle, but I find it quite amusing and actually kind of cool in the sense that it's modern, but weird modern, but I do like it. As you can see, I try to track VIS-7 with VAPCR, but it doesn't work out because he has the increased HP, so suspension durability, which has kind of greatly destroyed the tracking game of his game. And I actually tend to go much more for tracking now, for not as much tracking now as I used to, because you could end up not even doing damage, which is really annoying. So anyways, here you can see me making a couple of bad trades. I tried to reverse side scrape in my vehicle, but the tank has literally no armor, so that was a mistake. The chances of it working were minimal. But I did kill the IS-7, which is a big plus. And the side armor of this vehicle is minimal. I told you, this tank has basically no armor, so you can't do pretty much anything except, hold down. I mean, you can bounce the tank's hold down, right? But you can't do it as reliably, as other tanks. So anyways, I'm at 6k damage, which is great, and I'm just trying to maximize as much damage before I die. These tanks were focusing on my VZ, which is great. I'm trying to help him out. If I give one more shot, he'll survive, which is going to allow me in return to do more damage. That's awesome. We will reach 7k and he's still alive. He's probably going to die to the TVP, but it is what it is. And the TVP is YOLOing in, and he's gonna ram me, which is great. That's exactly what we want, to get an additional damaging shot in, worth of damage in. And I hope you saw that the DPM gun allows you to farm damage substantially if given the opportunity. And as you can see, we had a one blind shot in. And I'm going to show you now the other replay, where I play hold down, on Mannerheim line. And as you can see, I've been playing with regular equipment. And this was during a marathon, so the games are even more wild, basically. And yeah, I think this tank can be appealing to those that have substantial experience in the game and can make this tank work, despite its many flaws. And the tank actually is rather tall. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but this tank is extremely tall and long, wide. So it gets shots quite regularly from angles which other tanks wouldn't be, where you wouldn't expect. And I found this to be a feature that was actually kind of frustrating, but it was a minor nuisance. It did make me lose some additional damage because I lost HP at the beginning, but I can't say this tank is bad. There are definitely worse ones out there, in my opinion. I personally found this tank quite interesting to play because of the gun, which was fantastic. I find this gun to be next, after the Conk, the best one in terms of accuracy and reliability. Yeah, and as well, a common feature which I had with ES Conk was that I didn't use stab on either of them. So yeah, I usually tend to take the stabs on pretty much every vehicle. The only tanks I don't do that is on the Conk and on this one. Those are the only two, because I'm a great advocate for stabilizer and maximizing the chances of you hitting a tank. So anyways, I was talking earlier in the battle about the gold pen on this tank, and I said it was better than the 440. That's true, but the pen is still tragic. I believe it was a sub 340. I think it was like 315 or 320. It's something inhumane. It's like Kronbach. I think it was actually the same as a Kron, like terrible penetration rounds. And you're gonna see that later on when I try to take the C100 down. It's gonna take a lot of shooting, because I'm gonna bounce a substantial amount of shots. Now, about the battle itself, it's 1-1. I take, the usual hold down position on Mannerheim line. You have to be careful, however, because when you try to peek, you actually expose your hull and lower plate, which the enemies where V100 is at can easily pen. So you have to be extremely careful. I'm trying to bait the shots, which I am successful in doing so. I'm trying to shoot the lower plate of JP, but if you're wondering why I can't, it's because I literally don't have depression, and I'm not shooting the side cheeks because it's orange, and that cost me a shot, which is a misplay from me. However, I do manage to penetrate the Jagdpanzer and the 100, so it turns out it was like an okay trade. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of enemy tanks on my south, while we have approximately, exactly 5 tanks. And This side, this is also a crucial thing I want to teach you. You can, as you see, from this position you can farm the FE, but you have to be extremely attentive about the camping tanks at D6, which usually are, you can find like at least 1 to 2 to maybe even 3 TDs, you know. It's a really common camping position for TDs. And the reason why I'm peeking now is because all the TDs were spotted and only the gorilla is in that position at C8, D8. And as you can see, he's not even there anymore. And that allows me to basically free farm the FE for free, especially when he's in real load. I have absolutely no risk of taking damage. So that's something you have to be really careful of. If you see the opportunity, since nobody can shoot you back, this is a great position to take out the tanks that are misplaying, such as that FE. So we're at 4k damage and we're pretty much at full HP, which is fantastic. I'm going to put the shot in Makran. Again, the gun allows me to make these snapshots, which I really enjoy. I really do enjoy doing those snapshots, flick shots, as I'd call them. And another great position, another great thing that this position allows you to do is it gives you your opportunity to spot vehicles for your RDs. So assist damage is also great help. As you can see, the Udes manages to find a shot in my turret. Nothing special there. And then one other key thing what I want to show is I usually tend to elevate my gun in order to minimize the chances of the tanks shooting my cupola, you know, and the turret, upper turret too, which is also quite weak. I think to mention, like the crown, when you do that, you become impenetrable. The enemies do have a chance of panning the lower side of your turret, so it's not really foolproof, but it does minimize the total amount that the enemy can actually see the turret. So that's some advice, but you should not be expecting to bounce if you're completely visible to the enemy and you raise your turret up high, your gun up high. I do find these oscillating turrets quite fun to watch. Now, if you ask me how I missed that, I am actually unaware if I was shooting APCR or gold. If I was gold, there was no reason absolutely to bounce that. But if I was APCR, then it must have been a ricochet. Anyways, as another key play is that I focused out by Jagdpanzer, because Jagdpanzer could have absolutely clapped all of my HP, and the V100 was drowning, so he couldn't fight back. This does allow me to farm additional damage while surviving with a couple of extra HP of mine. And BHEs on this tank have really low alpha, so if you're like if you're really into blind shooting, I wouldn't even consider having those HEs, because they barely do any extra damage. And I have HEs because I usually tend to have HEs because it allows me to one-shot RDs. Or like punish the TDs that have you any tank with light armor to a considerable amount, but on this tank it really doesn't help out. So looking back, I probably would have dropped some HEs. But however, it's always good, you know, if you're fighting against a low HP vehicle that is extremely well armored, you know, if he has really low HP, you could always HE him out. So yeah. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed these battles, guys, to see how I played the M5Y while free marking it. And I'm gonna say my experience was positive with the tank. Of course, it's not as good as the other ones, as I mentioned several times. I know, kind of repetitive. But I did find the tank enjoyable to play and an experience that I did not regret. And I do advise people with limited experience to avoid tanks and go for more simple tanks, such as, you know, the Kran and the Conk for the beginning. But I think it's still a good pick. Thank you, guys.